Thanks very much for spending your day here at Pack Expo and coming to our Learning Center here at the Reusable Packaging Association. Today I'm joined by colleagues from the industry, and we're going to talk about today what makes an excellent reusable transport packaging application across the retail supply chain. And today we're going to talk about some of those learnings and examples that each of our members has across that supply chain. Just a little introduction. I'm Todd Hoff. I'm with the RPA. I have experience both in plastics packaging and also some of the world's largest pooling application in this industry. Let my colleagues introduce themselves.
Brandy Boaz. I'm with George Oots. I'm a key account manager. I specialize in warehouse automation and intralogistics. I've got a sales background of over 25 years. I've been with the company for about 2.5 years now.
I'm Derek Foster. I'm with the Rarick Pacific Company. I'm the Industrial Design Manager. I'm specifically tasked with innovating and discovering new ideas, a lot around the reusable packaging side, and just focused on trying to drive innovative designs for the future.
Hello, I'm Bianca Robinson. I'm from a company called Alpel. We specialize in bulk reusable packaging solutions, and I head up innovation at the company. My role there was both across the sustainability innovation side of things as well as digital.
I'm Dan Ahrens. I'm from CHEP, world's largest reusable pooling company. I lead our customer solutions and zero waste team. I also have a sales background, about 16 years selling in this space.
Great. So again, this topic of learnings and examples, we're going to go through some of the content that we recently published in a white paper that you can find on the reusables.org website. But today we're going to go through some real life examples each of our member companies have. So to get us started, kind of the first question is, what, from a supply chain perspective, what makes a good reusable packaging supply chain? What are the characteristics that makes reuse work best in a supply chain? And Dan, we'll maybe start with you.
Yeah, I would say velocity is a key piece for us.
So when you mean velocity, what do you mean?
How quickly it's moving.
Yep.
In order to kind of, and I think there's applications across the board, whether it's a partner owned or you buy your own, how quickly you're going to turn the asset is really one of the most intriguing parts of reusable packaging, mainly because if you turn it quicker, it means that you can really have less product and less of that product to move your product. When you think about pallets, we have roughly about 300 million worldwide. The quicker those turn, the better it is for us. But then there's also applications where if it's moving slower, you might want to invest in something different. It might want to be, and I think you really need to look at that aspect.
Great. How about you, Bianca?
In terms of supply chain characteristics and how you think about them in relation to implementing reusables in your organization or considerations, what we've found is that it's really critical to understand what your existing systems and processes are with regards to your packaging, because in our experience, the pain of change is one of the biggest obstacles to adoption of reusables. And so if you're able to leverage systems and processes that are already in place in relation to your supply chain, it reduces that pain of change and assists in the transition to reusable. And an example of that particularly is reverse logistics. So we found where we're chatting to customers that are using single-use packaging, if they already have some form of reverse logistics in place, it's a far simpler conversation than with others who've never considered reverse logistics. And so that would just be a consideration we found helpful, is understanding what you can leverage.
Great. How about you, Derek, from a supply chain characteristics perspective?
I think for us, looking at just the different mechanisms you need to have in place to run this play, it goes beyond just the package itself. It's tracking and tracing. It's having the right people to service that product to get it back to you in kind of that closed loop type of door, just ensuring that it comes back around. So to us, I think it's a variety of having the right components and the right partners to make this a successful reusable.
Sure. And how about you, Bianca?
Brandy.
Brandy, sorry. Two B's.
Yeah, exactly. I think ease of use. Our products are easy to use. They're user friendly, so it makes it simple. People like that. It builds loyalty. And adaptability is another one that our products can adapt to the changing volumes within systems. At certain times of the year, we have peak years with Black Friday and things like that. Our products can adapt and handle more volumes with, dividers and things like that. So I think those are a couple important characteristics.
Great. So the second area from our white paper was all about product damage and product damage reduction through a customer supply chain. Maybe tell an example or story that you have where by using reusable packaging, what were some of the learnings around product damage? And who wants to start?
I can.
Sure, start.
So we recently had a really interesting example where I think starting point is when we talk about the retail supply chain, our understanding of that is that it starts at the raw material, it's being transported to, thank you. So it starts from raw material, it's moving to manufacture, it's then transported through the distribution network to retail. So just to make sure we clear on that up front. And so we had this interesting example where a CPG customer was having damages with ice cream tubs. Interestingly, the damage rate was less than 1%, and yet they were motivated to look for an alternate solution to address that. And the reason for that was that these tubs were being transported in corrugate boxes, being compacted during transport, and at worst, completely destroyed, at best, disfigured. And why is that at best disfigured? No, at worst, destroyed. At best destroyed, at worst disfigured. And the reason for that is when it's disfigured, the damage is not visible to the eye. So then it enters the processing line where the corresponding lid cannot be fitted onto the tub, and it completely disrupts the processing line. And so it's just an interesting perspective on product damage. It's not just about the financial cost of the product loss itself, but the broader supply chain impact.
Sure. How about you, Dan?
Yeah, I would say, when you think about reusables, we have to make our products strong. And it inherently cuts down on the amount of product damage that you incur because that is made to be reused over and over again. I think all of us have products that are like that. And a specific customer, it's interesting. We had a customer that was shipping mayonnaise in cardboard. And our lesser known IBC division, we looked at it and was able to save them a lot of product damage, shipping, I think, 3 million tons of mayonnaise across the country every year.
Yeah.
And you think about that, and just losing even 1% is significant to their supply chain. So how do you make your packaging strong enough to withstand multiple trips? And with single use, it really doesn't come into play. You use it once, you throw it away.
Yep.
You don't have to worry about it being strong.
Exactly.
Well, I was going to say for us, we're more manufacturing, warehouse, and automation. So, our containers are a better fit for automation because they fit in the conveyor and the robotic picking. So you think of product damage when you have humans picking and moving product around where that robotic arm, and our products are designed for that it's a gentler way to move the product around in the system. So you're having less product damage there. And we also have protective things like dividers that we do put in our containers to prevent products from hitting each other and damaging each other and things like that. So, yeah.
Sure. Hey, and Derek, you bring a kind of a different perspective. Your background's in design. So how does the design of reusable packaging help reduce the damage of the reusable asset, but also the products that are inside?
Well, a good example of that is we took I wouldn't say a chance. We took a project with an egg produce company for one of the largest retailers in the U.S., and we got them out of one-way corrugate into what we call an RPC, a reusable plastic container. And not only did the design of that improve or reduce the shrink by about 60% in product damage, getting it to the store, but it also improved the way their customers interacted with the product. It reduced the labor by, as you mentioned before, making it simple, making it clean. So design can impact that right up front by making it more durable, improving ergonomics for loading, stacking. But we also implemented it so that it merchandised with the customer. So we were reducing labor up front for our retailers. So I think design has a big part in not just the performance, but the aesthetics, because it does become a point of purchase. And typically your corrugates are very highly decorated and the reusables aren't, but reusables can have some style and flair to make it attractive. So.
Good, good. And where would we find examples like this?
Walmart, Kroger,
Okay.
variety of your big.
Sure, the produce aisle,
produce aisle, yep.
the egg aisle, et cetera. That's great.
Exactly.
That's great. Kind of next question would be kind of the question about volume of goods. When we talk about reusable and reusable packaging, is there such a thing as does it work for small volumes or medium volumes or large volumes? What has been your experiences? Maybe start with Bianca.
So Dan was speaking about velocity earlier. We use the word utilization. When it comes to reusables, return on investment is critical. And one of the key drivers of return on investment is your utilization rate. And so we found in our specific use cases that volume and cycle time work hand in hand in terms of driving return on investment. And so on the one hand, you can have very high volumes of product that you're shipping, but very long cycle times, and that will reduce your utilization rate. And conversely, you can have very low volume of product and very short cycle times. And even though your reusables are moving quickly, you can't move more product than you have. And so then that also subsequently reduces your utilization rate. And so in our case, volume is important, it's critical, but it definitely works hand in hand with cycle time and cannot be seen in our experience independently.
Great.
Yeah, I would say that everybody wants more. I mean, all of us up here want more. But I think that there's applications in reusables for both. I mean, you talk about utilization, and there are, if you've got a slow-moving product, there's no reason for it not to be in a reusable. You just need to plan accordingly and pick the right partner or purchase the right product for what your supply chain dictates. And I think that's probably the most important thing is understanding your supply chain and finding the right solution that fits that supply chain. Because I think that you can use reusable in every application that at least I've come across.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think design is for us, the modular designs, the stacking, the nesting, those are the collapsibles, right? So, I mean, you're getting with the return of that, but you want that you get more on a transit. So that's for us, that's what we try to focus on is more of the design side of that. So, yeah.
Sure. And how about you, Derek?
I mean, I can agree with everybody's what they're stating here. They all impact each other, whether it's small volume or high volume. It's how you get that turn, how efficiently you get it back. It's the design of it. Can you improve that reverse logistics by nesting it, stacking it, collapsing it? I mean, everything in my mind could use a reusable, but again, it's just having those systems in place to help you manage that asset, to understand where it's at in its life cycle, whether it's going out, coming in, being washed, being serviced, controlling that asset. That way helps you manage it better.
Sure, great. Kind of our next topic is around solid waste reduction. One of the projects that the RPA just sponsored was a project around large home appliances. And part of that study was how much single-use packaging is in that industry today. Think of the cardboard, think of the EPS foam that goes around a home appliance, and think about all those other materials that are typically thrown away when that home appliance is delivered to your home. So, in that study, what we found was there's hundreds of thousands of tons of single-use material that's thrown away in that supply chain. It's an industry today that's not doing reuse, but again, as the RPA, we're looking always for opportunities to bring the concept of reuse into maybe even applications that don't today use reusables. So I'm curious to the panel from a solid waste reduction perspective, so eliminating cardboard or waste or single-use plastic, what has your experiences been with maybe some of your customers, and maybe you could share some examples. So Derek, maybe you start with you.
Well, this topic hits home for us at Rarig. We not only develop products for supply chain, we're heavily involved in the environmental waste side of business. So this kind of is a combination of things that we have passion for. Obviously, anything you can do to eliminate or divert that waste out of a landfill, you're doing something good for the planet. And
Right.
some of the things that we even look at into that is, can you dive into kind of what other waste streams that customer may be utilizing or getting rid of that you can actually turn into that reusable packaging moving forward. As far as a specific example, I don't really have anything off the cuff of a customer that we could say, hey, we helped divert this much poundage out of a landfill.
Sure.
But I think when you look at it is, even if it's a reusable, it can be recycled and processed back into another product. And it's kind of like touching on the waste streams is like a lot of plastics out there are very hard to process. Like a bulky, rigid plastic is a very tough plastic to process to put back into a new product. But if you invest in, I guess, the right people and the right science, you can find ways to get percentages of that in to your packaging. So again, anything you can do to divert it out of a landfill, I think you're creating a benefit, and understanding how many turns and life cycles you're going to get out of that reusable to know that it can go 5 years, 10 years, 20 years or beyond, and then collect that asset at the end of its life or once it's reached its point of failure, recycle it and get it right back into a new product.
Sure.
Yeah.
Dan, how about from a zero waste perspective?
Yeah, so my team directly deals with this every day, and getting to see all of the supply chain, everybody's supply chain for the most part, has been illuminating, because you can take the best practices of different customers and apply it to other customers that generally have nothing in common except for the creating waste. When you think about CHEP, we're one of the largest backhaulers in the world. So we have trucks moving all the time in different areas. So is there a way for us to partner together to eliminate some of this waste? We've identified a couple different opportunities with shrink wrap on how to, it's a problem for a lot of people. But what do you do with it? Once you cut it off, why does it become wasteful? Is there something that we can turn it back into? And identifying those opportunities and passing it along to different customers has inherently, and we've even provided the transportation on some of it, but it helps kind of talk about the waste, but it also talks about, hey, if we're hauling back pallets, why are we not hauling back your other stuff, that your other reusables that can be sent back? We have partnerships all over the place. How do we do this better together? And I think that's probably the big case right now, especially in reverse logistics.
Great. How about you, Bianca?
I think reusables undoubtedly drive unprecedented levels of waste diversion from landfill. And so we have lots of examples of where the waste from cardboard boxes has been eradicated. But I think the principle, because it's like you were saying, Derek, we've got tons and numbers, but they can often be irrelevant if we don't put them in context. And so the principle of the matter is that cardboard or consumables ultimately either land up in landfill, or alternatively, they require scarce resources to be recycled and processed. And so neither is a win. And so actually, I have this piece of paper here because I think reusables, just to visualize, you either have waste and you put more waste to processing that waste. So you waste scarce resources to get rid of this, or you just have no waste. And that's sort of the principle of the matter, to help you visualize it.
That's a great example.
I love that you brought a prop.
That's great. How about you, Brandy? What's your perspective on this?
For our products, they've got a service life of over 20 years. So, and after that, they can be turned into something else as well. So, obviously we love taking the place of cardboard, and also to kind of touch on the appliances, we're helping eliminate damaged products. So that's being thrown away. The amount of damaged products that are being tossed into the landfills from cardboard, from the shipping, from the transit, not using the reusable, we can also eliminate that too, that
Sure.
waste.
So maybe to build on this topic, we like this topic. I love the prop, but maybe tell me some challenges that you've had working with customers when it comes to reducing waste, that maybe you learned something through that process that maybe it wasn't as easy as you originally thought. Anybody have an example?
It's probably too many to count.
Yeah.
I think Bianca touched on it earlier. It's. I think it was Bianca, but changing people's perception. We've always done it this way.
Sure.
Well, always doing it that way is not good enough anymore. And I think you're seeing that more and more with consumers. They're looking to see what companies are doing in their processes when they make a purchasing decision. So are you doing things the right way? Are you doing things better? Just doing things better is not good enough anymore. Zero is not even, it's regenerative. How do you make things better throughout to take a step forward? I mean, a lot of what we run into is really a customer saying, well, you know, it just seems like a lot of effort for us to do. We've been fine doing it this way now, but I think you're starting to see a lot more companies looking at ways to do things differently, and actually ways to do things differently together.
Exactly.
Often we stuck in our ways. Can you hear me? No. Can you? There. Good. Often we stuck in our ways around how we do things, and we forget what it takes to do that. So, for example, if we've been using single-use packaging for ages, and there's a system and a process that's running autonomously to move that waste through the system and out, we don't realize what it entails to actually accomplish that. And so then when a reusable opportunity presents itself, and suddenly things like reverse logistics or asset control present themselves, we sort of balk at that because that seems like extra cost, extra work, extra effort. But in actual fact, if you correlate that to the cost of managing your waste, moving it out, obviously the cost to the environment, more often than not, we find either they're similar costs or actually reusables are more cost effective than what you're already doing. And so that's just an interesting dynamic around perspective.
Any other examples?
I mean, I go on a lot of discovery calls where people are looking to get into a new solution. They obviously are identifying a sustainability goal that their company is driving, and packaging can be a very quick way to start moving the needle in the right direction. But as it's been mentioned, is that reverse logistics. If you don't already have a kind of a closed loop pool to move that product out and get it back in time to get it circulated, I think inherently people do balk at it. They get a little nervous. They're like, okay, this is starting to sound expensive. I'm going to have to. But I think when you partner with the right people and you sit down and you pencil it out and you do the math, you can see that that investment may take 1.5, 2 years, but that ROI, once it starts to look attractive at that 2-year mark, under the 3-year mark, that's when it's really people start to gravitate towards it. And if you can implement that change without having a huge capital expenditure, and ways to do that obviously is if you can find an off-the-shelf solution through a provider like one of our companies could offer you, that's a great way to get your foot in the door of the reusable. But if you don't, then you're going to go for that customized solution, which there are benefits to that too, because again, you're shipping less air and it's custom fitted for your product. But as we are looking at the large household appliances, when let's call it a community or an industry can come together on a solution, then it becomes easier to adopt because everybody's playing in the game. It's to me that's a great way for reusables to try to move things forward, especially in the U.S., is if we can get industries on board and uniting under kind of a standard, then it becomes easier to implement.
Exactly. Anything else you'd want to add on that one, Brandy?
I think that's it.
Perfect. And lastly, kind of our last topic is around sustainability. So we hear the topic sustainability. We hear a lot about reusable and circular kind of economies. I'm curious, what are some of your learnings working with a customer, helping them quantify the sustainability benefits of a reusable type system? And maybe Bianca, we'll start with you.
Perfect. So right at the inception of our company, before the advent of legislation like packaging and packaging waste regulation, we wanted to confirm with facts that the perception we had on the circularity and the sustainability of our solution was in fact true. And so we engaged with an independent sustainability consultant to develop what's called a life cycle analysis, which looks at the life cycle of a product. And in our case, we compared that to a corrugate box solution. And an example was a US-based customer of ours who moves products between the US and Europe. we actually use this as part of our upfront sales conversation to quantify the benefit besides just the ROI and economic value. And when we did the LCA, when we conducted it, the results were astounding. So when they move from a cardboard Gaylord to our unit, which is a reusable unit, that we only modeled for 20 reuses with a single turn a year, which is a very slow cycle time. Their CO2 emissions were cut by 42%. And this is within a very small product stream of theirs. So they're a very big company. This is just one product stream. Water reduction was 21%. And then interestingly, obviously there's a lot of talk around cardboard being circular because it's recyclable. It's also can be used maybe up to 3 times if you have a higher end product. But when we did the circularity indicator on a cardboard box, it was 0.4, where 1 is perfectly circular, and our solution was 0.95, so almost perfectly circular. So that's just a real life example of the benefit and the value. It's not theory or anything fuzzy. It's real impact.
So Dan, I'm curious, how do you help customers quantify the benefits of these type systems?
So I think LCAs are huge, and I think it needs to be a third party, so you can stay above reproach when it comes to that. To say, hey, this is how using our product impacts you from a sustainability aspect. We've been quoted in a couple of our customers' annual reports, sustainability reports, just talking about, hey, by using a CHEP pallet, it's eliminating this much waste. Rachel's going to kill me because listening to her numbers, the numbers just slipped out of my head. But I think it's really important to explain to people, what the impact is, because they don't know. Like, you're the expert, so you need to be able to explain and have that document that backs up and be able to explain that LCA in detail that is verified by a third party. Time Magazine named us the 4th most sustainable company in the world recently. Which shocked me. I didn't know Time Magazine even did that. But it's interesting because everything that we're doing is around sustainability and really impacting our customers' sustainability by using our product. So I think you're seeing a market shift that way. And I don't think that there's going to be an industry that's not looking at reusables moving forward, because that's going to be the way of life moving forward.
Exactly. How about you, Brandy?
Yeah, we, just an example, some of our customers have specific targets for using recycled material. So we dealt with an automotive customer that required 20 to 25% recycled material that we use to make their products. So we're able to vet our buyers that we purchase our product from to make sure that we're buying that recycled material to make that, so they can meet their targets on that too.
So both recyclable and reusable.
And reusable. So win-win.
Great.
Yeah.
Exactly. And how about you, Derek, from a sustainability perspective with customers?
Oh, we'll get requests for customers in a very similar manner. They want to see a percentage of recycled content in their product, but even when you're trying to achieve that, it can become challenging. If it's black plastic, easy. We can get you a black plastic. But if you want something shiny, new, and blue, and you want a high percentage of recycled content in it, that's where some challenges can allure. But one of the things RERG has done pretty well at is invest in technologies like co-injection, where we're able to inject recycled content between new material. So we can yield like 35 or higher percentage of recycled content, but it looks like a brand new product. So it gives us a way, again, just technology, the way it's moving forward at a rapid rate. Investing in those technologies allows you to achieve those goals, but still deliver a product that looks brand new, like it was never recycled. But then again, at the end of its lifetime, able to grind it up and put it right back into another product.
Exactly. Maybe, Derek, go a little bit deeper into, there's a lot of talk about extended producer responsibilities. And so how does that impact sustainability, and how does design impact some of those decisions?
Well, with the Extended Producers Responsibility Act, it's obviously kicking up in a few states. I think people are starting to take a more serious look at it because it's going to impact the bottom line of their business. So when they come to us, and that's like a concern from them on the design engineering end, we look at their current packaging solution. How can we reduce weight out of that? Again, adding technology to help manage that asset, to understand where it's going and how it's getting back. Other things that we look at is, I think it's a full suite solution that you have to offer. Besides that packaging, it's the technology and looking at material or delivery solutions to help move that product more efficiently. For us, every customer is a unique challenge. But if you can design the right product that's modular, that's efficient on the reverse logistics, that stacks with its partners, that reduces the air limit, that you're shipping, all these factors, once you add it up, then you find that true value at the end. And I think if you can combine all that into your reusable solution, you've got a winning product.
Win. How about the rest of you?
So obviously the EPR legislation looks at things from the industrial side of things. Packaging and packaging waste regulation shifts the focus to the consumer side of things. But from a transport packaging perspective, just to double click on some of the things you're saying that overlap with that, we've been intrigued to find that from transport packaging, given that's the space we sit in, the three key drivers that the legislation is seeking to change is the nature of the product. So is it reusable, single use? The content of the product, is it virgin material, is it recycled material? And then the recyclability, how recyclable is it? And so reusables sit in a really sweet spot when it comes to this, because they obviously tick the box in terms of being reusable. They secondly very easily can be made from recycled content. That's growing. The market in that respect is growing in terms of recycled plastics that can perform equally as well as virgin plastics. And then finally, being recyclable. So we speak a lot about recyclability and circularity in terms of a product being recyclable, but the trend is definitely towards reuse. And the global packaging director for Mars was saying yesterday, if Europe were able to get Apple to change their plugs to be universally accepted, or their chargers to be universally accepted, we can all expect their reuse standards to become the norm. And to what Dan was saying, it's going to become our way of life.
Exactly.
It would make things a lot easier for everybody if they would just do that. I mean, I don't think there's much that I can add beyond what they've said. I think they covered
Great.
pretty much everything I can think of.
So maybe to wrap up, what's the one thing each of you would say is the most important thing in learning on helping a customer move to a reusable system? What's that one takeaway for our audience today?
For us, we found it's communicating what the value is. So it seems quite simple, but our experience has shown that it's very difficult to conceptualize value. And even now, as we speak, it's difficult to conceptualize it. That's why I brought the paper, to actually see it. And so we've really learned that it's invaluable if we can do the conceptualization for our customers. So put the numbers together for them, visualize it for them, if that's in infographics or photos from use cases or case studies. And so that's been our biggest takeaway, is making the benefits of reuse more tangible and concrete.
Great. How about you, Brandy? What's your one takeaway for the audience?
I think it's important to choose the right partner, maybe an expert that we can, for us to customize the right reusable solution for you. And again, so you're not wasting space, shipping air, things like that, so your products can fit it, rather than maybe just going out and picking a generic standard, I guess, solution. So I think that just meeting your needs, setting down, having those meetings with design and all that, and just being very customized, and just choosing the right partner. Yeah.
Great. How about you, Derek?
I'd say our biggest thing is understanding the voice of the customer. Truly spending the time to listen, understand the challenges that they're facing, and create a solution that impacts them at the end of the day.
So I left you to last. You can't say.
I was kind of hoping you would let me go first. Everything they just said, but understanding the supply chain, I think, is one of the most important parts. And really understanding your customer's supply chain as well as try to understand their supply chain as well as they do. It's not a one-stop shop on reusables. Every single one of us has a product that somebody could probably use within their supply chain right now. And finding that right application for it is the most important thing. To find the right fit at the right time is the secret sauce, I would say.
Great.
I agree.
Great example. So to the audience, so what's great about this discussion, these are all members of our retail e-commerce workstream committee, and we meet every month and we talk about industry challenges. And today are just some of the things that we talk about. We work on projects. We recently commissioned a study around large household appliances. And as we think about that industry, what opportunities exist to, again, remove waste from that industry. We're starting a project right now with the USDA about external transport packaging to Europe and returning it back to meet some emerging regulations. So our committee spends a lot of time thinking about industry challenges and how as an industry we can bring potential solutions to the market. So thank you very much for attending. You can find a lot of this information on the reusables.org website or our LinkedIn page. Make sure you follow us. So we have about 5 minutes for questions. Does anybody have any questions for the audience? 1 second, we're just relocating the reusable mic.
Hi, this is Ram here from India. I have a question for Mr. Dan. When it comes to pallets, for most products in industrials, they use stretch films to package the product on the pallet or secure it, right? And you see that those films are getting thinner and thinner by the year because, okay, cost is one part of it, but also because the quality or the technology has improved so much that now even the thinner films can do the job of securing the goods on the pallets. The most difficult part, however, of the thinner films is how do you recycle them? Like there's hardly any recycled value left once you've made it like 15 micron, 18 micron. Back in India, what they have done is, of course, they've mandated that the film has to be minimum 30 micron to be used for this purpose, and then for other purposes they've made it 40 micron. So there's a minimum micron that you need to you have to have that film so that it is at least be able to extract some material out of it and be sell to the recycler. But in US particularly, and particularly in your part of the world, how is it going with those films? Are you also going in the same direction? And what alternate solutions do you think can be used to eliminate this plastic waste? Because it's a humongous waste we are talking about here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So maybe I can start. So in the US and other places in the world, there is now reusable stretch wrap or reusable systems that are holding your unit load together that are not used once and thrown away. Because stretch film is great, but it's really hard to recycle. It clogs up recycling lines and stuff like this. So there are solutions even here in this general area where they are reusable strapping they're plastic systems, but they're reusable systems that hold that unit load together. Anything else you'd add?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it also starts with what's on that pallet, right? If you're shipping a bunch of corrugate one-way packaging, you're going to have to stretch film it to hold it together. So if you move towards a reusable container system that stacks and interlocks a little better, you don't need as much stretch film or any stretch film at all. And then you leverage something like a top cap and a strapping system that can be repeated over and over and over again. You eliminate that stretch film right out of the solution right there.
Yeah.
So I think it takes that paradigm shift of not just the pallet, but the boxes, that packaging, what's going on there to get towards eliminating stretch film.
So we like to talk about it as a box and pallet 2-in-1 solution. So exactly what Derek's saying, then the stretch wrap's not required because it's a single unit. There's different forms. We can chat afterwards around what those solutions look like.
Great.